Alright, I've got another NPC upgrade build for you guys today, and of course for today we're looking at middle Flatwell's TSUBASA AC. Going no further, I just want to say I really hope you guys enjoyed this video because this was actually a bit of a nightmare to get recorded. These intros are actually the last thing I record, funnily enough. Recording this video has been filled with the game crashing in the menus, my recording software crashing. It's just been an absolute nightmare to get this video made, so again, I really hope you enjoy it. Well, let's go ahead and get into the build. So what are the main issues with middle Flatwell's TSUBASA AC? Other than that, it's kind of just playing an archetype that isn't very good in Armored Core 6. Some of the parts aren't the best, but honestly, nothing's really all that bad about it. Especially the frame parts, the TSUBASA parts that the original build has, which I've only made one small change to, are all really good parts, right? So, there's not really much to complain about for the frame. For the weapons, I've made a few small tweaks, specifically upgrading the bazooka, the little gem, the majestic, just to have a bigger direct hit damage punisher, right? And I've upgraded his 4-cell missile launcher to his 6-cell missile launcher. And that's all I changed. Just basically more damage and impact output, right? Just to sort of bump up his consistency a little bit. And then the other thing I changed would be the internals. Specifically, a better generator is kind of one of the bigger upgrades to the build, I think. Makes energy management way easier and just made the build overall feel a lot better. Because the way this build plays is that you essentially just kind of float right above your opponent's head, peppering them with assault rifle until you get a stagger, and you can, get the direct hit damage punish with the bazooka, right? Pretty simple, but it's just kind of not that good. A close range floater it's really awkward. It's honestly pretty hard to play, and it's just not a particularly good loadout, to be honest. I mean, it's certainly playable. It's also pretty fun to play, in my opinion. But definitely, the DPS is not going to be comparable to something with, something like the ear shots or any of the laser weapons. Pretty much, to be frank, you're just not going to get that level of damage output, right? But it's still pretty good despite all that. Just pretty awkward to play. And I tried a couple things with this build. Like, I actually considered converting it into a sort of more mid-range, more kiting focused sort of build, but it just didn't work out. The more I tried to make it more kitey and give it a bit more range, a bit more wiggle room, the worse the build felt, funnily enough. Unfortunately, this game really highly favors close range builds. It is what it is, but that's enough talking about it. Go ahead and get into the details. Now, I've only made a few small tweaks to his weapon layout because I wanted to stick really closely to the original theme of this build, which is this sort of, assault rifle, just sort of spam and missile spam to get a stagger, and then switch for the majestic for that direct hit damage, right? And so I decided to stick pretty close to that, but of course I've made a few changes here. Now, the SUG and the Rensetsu RF remain unchanged. The Rensetsu, of course, is probably the best assault rifle in the game. Does really good damage, does really good impact, really solid all around. And the SUG, I actually considered switching this out for a couple things. I even considered switching it out for maybe even the Rensetsu AR or another Rensetsu RF to transition to more of a mid-range build, but I found this just didn't work out very well at all. In fact, it worked out really poorly. It was actually a massive downgrade. So I stuck with the more close-range setup, and so we've stuck with this. Now, getting into the changes here, first we've got the Majestic Bazooka, switch from the original Little Gem. The main reason here is for the extra weight we take on, it's a massive upgrade, right? The extra weight here does not make that big of a difference, but in exchange, we get quite a bit of extra base damage, and more importantly, we also get more direct hit adjustment. So it's actually a pretty significant damage upgrade, especially, in that direct hit damage, that burst damage that this build is so reliant on, right? And it's very reliant on it, I would say. And then finally, for the missiles, I've upgraded his 4-cell missile launcher to the 6-cell missile launcher. This is mostly, again, just for extra burst, extra consistency on getting those staggers as quickly as possible, right? And yeah, pretty simple stuff here, nothing major, just minor tweaks. But yeah, it feels like quite a bit better overall in my opinion, but that's all there is to say about the weapons. Go ahead and move on into the frame parts. Now, I've made one change to the frame parts because, quite frankly, the original TSUBASA set that his frame uses is just already really good for lightweight builds. It's an incredibly good build. Now, first, the head, pretty solid head. It's got decent attitude, stability, and decent defenses for its weight and energy load. It's not the best head in the game for sure, but it's also definitely not the worst, right? Now, the core is one place I haven't made a change. The primary reasoning here is just simply going to be for the energy recharge delay, actually. Because I found that switching from the Formenza core to the Alba core, that 0.17 shorter recharge delay probably doesn't seem like a big deal, but I found that it actually made the build feel a lot better to play. I felt it was way easier to maintain my energy. Now, if you're, say, just like way better energy management than I am, which to be fair, I'm not that good at the game anyways, like Formenza core is probably going to be better in that case, because, a little bit faster, a little bit lighter weight, a little bit more better supply efficiency. So, in that case, but I just felt like the Alba core was the overall better option. And it fits in pretty well because they're both Elcano cores, right? So I thought it was a pretty, thematically fitting anyways, right? And next for the Formenza arms, these are really, really good arms. They're lightweight, pretty low energy load, and they've got decent defenses and good firearm specialization for their load, right? These are pretty solid arms. They're really good. They're kind of probably like the biggest issue with them is that they're just not as good as VP460 is probably like the biggest downside of the Formenza arms. Funnily enough, they're just not as good as these other arms, but the Formenza arms are really, really good, right? Now the legs, the Formenza legs, these are again another really good pair of legs lightweight builds for their weight and energy costs. Again, the defenses aren't the worst, and the additive ability is not the worst, but they're extremely light, so you can make a very fast build with these, right? And yeah, that's pretty much all there is to say about the frame parts. Just lightweight parts, and one small change for some I guess not better energy management, but easier energy management. But yeah, let's go ahead and move on into the internals. All right, now starting with the booster, I haven't actually changed his booster here from the Gridwalker. And so this is kind of an interesting, or I guess weird booster in that it's basically, it primarily is focused on upper thrust, right? And I really strongly considered switching this to something like the Alula. Was kind of like the biggest contender in my mind that I was considering. And I ended up not switching it primarily for the purpose of I wanted to retain that playstyle of a sort of close range floater, right? Because the kind of primary way you play with this build with these boosters is that you kind of just float right above your opponent's head, right? And this makes it more difficult for your opponent to stay locked onto you, especially if you wanted to, say, use something like this PvP. It'd be really hard for a player to stay locked onto you. Obviously, for the NPCs, it's not quite as hard as for them, but definitely for another player, and even for NPCs, it can really throw off their, especially like back units and stuff, will very often just can't fire that high. So it's a pretty interesting playstyle. It's definitely one of the more difficult ones to play well. You've got to be really careful with your height management and stuff, but I decided to stick with it. And yes, what else is there to say? I switched out his original FCS for, I believe, from the P05 to the Talbot. The main purpose being that this is kind of more of a close range build than a medium range build, to be honest. But it kind of tends to hover in that area between like 110 to like 150, and you generally don't ever want to be more than that. So, and I find myself often in the close range assist territory, so I felt the Talbot was a better option. From that regard, we also retain, roughly the same amount of missile lock correction, so it doesn't affect the missiles that much. But I found that the extra close range assist actually helped quite a bit. So Talbot is, a good FCS, so we switched to it. And then finally for generator, we switched from the Yaba to the Hokushi. And honestly, this is, in my opinion, basically just a flat upgrade across the board, pretty much. Way better energy output, better energy capacity, and because of the better energy output, we have way more supply efficiency, so we actually have better recharge. And kind of like the biggest downside is that it weighs a bit more, but it doesn't weigh enough to actually impact the build that much, right? So the Hokushi, it is. And using this generator a lot recently, it's a really good generator, especially if you're not having to worry about energy firearm specialization. This is an incredibly good generator, one of the best in the game. And I do find myself using it more often than not recently. It used to not be that good, so if you're kind of confused about this because you probably looked at it before and it was really bad, it used to be a bad generator, but now it's really good, right? It's really good. One of the, if not the best overall generator in the game, in my opinion. Kind of competing with like some of the other like highlights, right? The VE20Z is something I use a lot because of this high energy spec and high energy output. So this is one I use a lot, right? But the Hokushi is just really good. So there you go. And finally, for the expansion, pulse protection is not exactly my favorite option here. I decided to leave it because it's not really that big of a deal, right? If you want to play with assault armor instead or something like that, feel free. But yeah, that's all there is to say about the build. As always, hope you guys enjoyed the video. Stick around in a minute for some more gameplay footage. I'll catch you guys in the next video.
Combat mode.
Let's get started, Raven. Astrocrown's pilot, callsign King, has an 89.6% mission success rate. His reputation for finesse is such that he's advertised as the ideal mercenary. Umbrox is piloted by Chartreuse, an aggressive bulldozer with unrivaled firepower. Those who've seen her at work call her an unstoppable force. Intercept the 2 targets.
There's our merc. Go take care of the objective, King. I'll clip this one's wings.
Not alone. This is a branch mission. I'll support you.
This isn't right. You're just a Gen 4. You belong in a museum, not an AC. You don't know when to quit. Just like all the other Ravens.
This pilot's no Raven. Don't let the call sign mislead you.
What other Ravens?
Why won't you die?
Chartreuse! Withdraw! Abandon your AC!
AC Umbrox destroyed.
APP at 30%.
Augmented human C4621. We're not here to take back the Raven. However, we will see if you can do it justice. Apologies for the delay, King.
You're late. The imposter already got Chartreuse. We can't take chances.
1 repair kit remaining.
You're strong. Worthy of your name.
AC Astrocrown destroyed.
Thank you, King. We've lost both of them.
1 AC left, Raven.
The Raven is a symbol of resolve. The will to choose what one fights for.
Stay focused, Raven.
Yes, Raven, I feel it too. This mercenary has potential.
Moment to choose.
Right hand ammunition at 30%. AP at 50%. No repair kits remaining.
Raven, we can still... All right. We'll watch this one. See where they go on a Raven's wings.
All enemy ACs destroyed. Mission accomplished.